All right, so there are a lot of things that can change exchange rates. So we looked at a simple picture to introduce ourselves to things where supply stayed the same while demand shifted, or demand stayed the same while supply shifted. But as much complexity as exists in foreign exchange markets, it's probably it is the case that we generally see both the demand and supply curves shifting left and right at the same exact time, all the time, for a lot of different reasons. So it can get a little complex, but remember, we've looked at simultaneous shifts of both demand and supply before, and we know exactly what's going to happen from that. So getting into a couple of examples of what might cause it. Say inflation happens, or deflation in this case. Inflation falls, meaning that the euro itself, its own domestic purchasing power has increased. Which we say deflation is a bad thing. If we see prices in general falling for reasons that have to do with businesses being able to get costs lower, that kind of deflation isn't the deflation we're talking about. It does involve a lot of prices falling, but it's not necessarily bad for an economy. But anyway, as far as international exchange is concerned, um, what would happen is that since the purchasing power of euros is stronger, demand is going to rise, but supply is going to fall. We're going to have a leftward shift of the supply curve and a rightward shift of the demand curve. Everything we're doing ceteris paribus analyses here. European goods are now cheaper in terms of dollars because the euros that you buy with your dollars are going to buy you more European stuff. Meanwhile, if you're in Europe, you're going to want to buy European stuff more than United States stuff in general because the purchasing power of your euros has gone farther, so you're not going to supply them in foreign exchange markets as much. You're not going to want to accept very many dollars, or at the very least, someone's going to have to offer you a lot more dollars to get your euros than they did before. So the way that's going to look graphically, supply curve just shifted to the left. People aren't giving up as many euros. So we have a decrease in the quantity of euros being traded and an increase in the price of dollars needed to get those euros. However, the demand curve has also shifted right. So in this particular example, we see that overall there are more euros being supplied on foreign exchange market. Not more euros being printed up, but more euros being sold on international exchange markets. In this particular example, that's what we see. And we see they're being sold because you can get more dollars now. More American businesses, more American consumers, more American tourists, whatever, are wanting these euros badly enough to where they're willing to increase the price they're willing to pay. So when both of these curves shift at the same time, we end up right here. Now remember, with simultaneous shifts, we actually don't know what's going to happen to the quantity. We only know what's going to happen to the price. Quantity is indeterminate, price is unambiguously higher. You don't have to remember that necessarily, but that is how simultaneous shifts work. But in this example, we see that both quantity and price have risen. Another thing, if the U.S. interest rate rises, remember what happens when interest rates rise. If you're holding on to dollars, you don't get an interest rate for a dollar. You get inflation, but not an interest rate. You have more of an incentive to put that dollar into something that's going to pay that interest rate. So what happens with foreign exchange markets? The supply of euros is going to go up while the demand for euros is going to go down. How on earth is that related, though? Well, the supply of euros is going up for people who hold dollars, because if you have euros, when you're going to put your money into an investment, you need to use the currency denominated by that investment. If you're going to buy a bond, if you're going to put something in a savings account. If you're holding a currency and you want to put that currency into something that's bearing interest, and interest rates in the United States rose, You want dollars now more than you want euros so that you could put those dollars into American investments. So you're going to supply more euros on international markets in exchange for dollars. And there's going to be less demand for euros because people are going to want to keep their dollars so they can put them into US investments. So the supply of euros has increased, which ceteris paribus means the price in terms of dollars is going to fall. However, the demand for euros has also fallen. So we actually don't know where supply is going to end up, but we know that the price in terms of dollars is going to fall. Because people are so desperate to get dollars, they'll accept fewer dollars in order to give up their euros. We don't know what's going to happen with quantity. Price unambiguously falls. In this example, we have a higher quantity of euros being traded at lower prices in terms of US dollars. Because these prices are so low, because of a strong enough shift, rightward shift in the supply curve for euros, where people are really looking to get dollars to get these US investments that are paying higher interest rates. In this case, we see a higher quantity of euros with a falling price. So we have rising and falling prices, rising and falling quantities. Those rising and falling prices can be a problem for a lot of developing countries who are going to be a little more heavily impacted by changes in these prices. They're a little more reliant on foreign trade to maintain certain levels. It's easier to sell your stuff overseas than it is to an impoverished population, at least until you can develop more. But while you're developing, you don't want these disruptions. So in developing countries, also countries that dealt with hyperinflation will also have fixed exchange rates. What a lot of monetary authorities will do in developing countries is they'll make sure that their exchange rate is fixed. Their exchange rate with a particular currency, usually the dollar, is fixed. They'll peg their currency to the dollar, is what it's called. Which means that whatever happens with foreign trade, whatever happens with inflation in their country, whatever happens with inflation in the United States, the quantity of dollars that it takes to buy your domestic currency is going to be the same. And the quantity of your currency that it takes to buy a dollar is going to be the same, regardless of what's happening elsewhere. This is not always easy to pull off, and it can have some unintended negative consequences, which is why wealthier countries just prefer to let foreign exchange rates float, as they're called, wherever they're going to go, and let markets adapt as they need to, because they can afford to do this. They can afford to sell more domestically if they have to, or find different trading partners. Developing countries, not so much. So what this graph is showing is the exchange rate, and we're using the Thai baht now as an example of a currency. You're never going to see the euro, probably never going to see the euro get pegged to the US dollar. So it's a little easier to fathom the Thai baht. I think the Thai baht has actually been pegged to the dollar. So monetary authorities in Thailand have decided that they want to keep things at this exchange rate. No matter what happens with the dollar, with foreign currency exchanges, with foreign trade patterns, they want this to be the exchange rate, the quantity of dollars per baht, or bahts per dollars, that's the price that's going to emerge, whatever happens with these supply and demand curves. So let's say that the demand curve for Thai baht shifts to the right. For whatever reason, people who have dollars want more bahts. They want to do more trading with Thailand or whatever. Well, this means that the exchange rate has just risen, more dollars per Thai baht, and this can be problematic for certain industries in Thailand, so they want to keep the exchange rate here. So your monetary authority, what do? With the you have control over the number of Thai bahts in the market. You're going to want to shift that supply curve to the right to meet the demand curve right here. So the exchange rate stays the same. Going in the other direction, if demand for bahts falls, you're going to want to do some contractionary monetary policy to get that supply curve to intersect the new demand curve at a price that is the same exchange rate. That's basically how pegs work. And you can do that either through expansionary or contractionary monetary policy domestically, or you can do that by engaging in different levels of trade with your currency on foreign exchange markets. Just buy and sell other currencies for bots, or buy and sell bots with other currencies you hold in reserve to try to change the rate at which the Thai baht is being traded in general. That's a little more complicated. And again, we're just doing introductory things. But when you hear about fixed exchange rates or pegs, this is essentially what monetary authorities in those countries are doing with whichever currency they're looking to peg their currency to. You basically increase or decrease the supply of your currency to match whatever changes in demand for your currency are happening from holders of the dollar or whatever other currency you're looking to peg things to. And again, in interest of keeping these videos under 15 minutes, I'm going to save my little don't worry about the world reserve currency scare thing videos for the next video. So just click on that